on.
So let's go ahead and begin this thing then. Oh, that's yours. Yep. So we're going to adopt the agenda.
Well, first you have to call the meeting to order.
I call the meeting to order.
Uh-huh.
I already banged the gavel once, real good. 6:38.
And then announce what meeting it is.
Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting
on June 17th.
On June 17th.
2015.
2015.
And then ask for a move to adopt the agenda.
Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Seconded.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Sure, microphone on.
Sounds like it.
Is it?
Nope. There it is.
Better.
Oop, there it is. Okay. So we've adopted the agenda. So let's move on to oral communications. Do we have any?
I actually do. Is it okay for me to do oral communications?
Committee member matters.
It's not really committee member matters. It's truly oral communications. Public service announcement.
Okay.
San Bruno Mountain Watch is looking for a volunteer to help in the office with data entry and filing and clerical stuff. And if anybody from the public would like to put in a couple of hours a week, we sure could use the help. Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, or all three, a few hours here and there. Or any college students home from the summer that would need a unpaid internship, we'd be really interested. That's my oral communications. Thank you.
I have one. So just to let you know, Senate Bill 185, which calls upon the California State Personnel Retirement System and the California Teachers Retirement System to divest from coal stocks, is now working its way through the State Assembly. It has passed the Senate. Wow. So just FYI, the City of Brisbane has gone on record as advocating fossil fuel divestment from both of those institutions. So members of the community may want to add their voices in support of that legislation.
So that's it. Do we have any chair or?
Chair or committee member matters. You said we had 3?
No, basically this is a chance when people make their announcements, but I think
We did that.
is there anyone else that needs?
Well, yeah, since we're announcing everything, everybody write it on your calendar now. Sunday, August 9th is Mountain Watch's pancake, breakfast, and plant sale. There, that's my other community announcement. It's going to be really good. A great plant sale. We got a lot of stuff and very water-wise plants, and you don't have to eat pancakes. You can just come buy plants, or you can do both, or whatever. Okay, thank you.
That's it. Any more? Move on to the next thing.
Let's go ahead and move on.
The chair can announce the item, but that's okay. We are going to now.
Review of the draft EPA outline and measures. Oh my.
Great, so we've been wanting to get this before the full committee for a couple of months now, and we have a quorum, at least tonight, to talk about it. Your subcommittee of Barbara Ebel and Glenn Fieldman have been working together with staff on putting together, based on the San Mateo County CCAG Regionally Integrated Climate Action Plan template, an environmental action plan. And we're doing an environmental action plan because we are not prescribed, we're not working on the land use issues that could impact the climate. Those are being handled by the Planning Commission and the general plan and are kind of not within our purview. So we've come up with the term of art of an environmental action plan, because it goes beyond an energy action plan and goes beyond energy efficiency and renewable energy, and also deals with water savings and solid waste types of reductions. So what we've put together, Natalie's done a lot of this work, is an outline, because we did talk to the council subcommittee, and I think they wanted to see a little bit of what the structure of the plan might look like. So we put this outline together, and we'll just kind of start there and take you through it. It lists the acknowledgments of who's been involved. It will list the committee. Table of contents, I can skip that because I'm going to explain everything. We've got an introduction about what the issue is, and Glenn has drafted what we've got here. I think Glenn's still working on this, but it's
I am.
a pretty strong introduction, and certainly, I don't know if people have read prior, but if you have comments, you can submit them tonight, or you can submit them to Natalie and I through email or by phone, or whatever means works for you. What we've got, like I said, is a work in progress. The goal when we go through all of this is to set up a council study session, and then from there try to work towards technically finalizing this document, but really it's, if anyone was paying attention to the Bayland Sustainability Framework and that process at the council, it's a living document and it can change and be updated, and we're constantly trying to improve what we do. Yes.
Do we have any idea of a timeline for the council study session? Or
I didn't want to try to schedule it until we finish tonight and see if we finish tonight, and then I'll go and try to set one up. And that's right, you have told us when you're gone, so we want to try to do that when you're back.
Yes,
I suppose.
please.
Okay. It's hard to get the council in less than 3 weeks, so it'll probably end up being
Okay,
a month from now anyways,
that should be safe.
or more. Okay. So the introduction, and I don't know if you have comments and questions as we go, I guess feel free to just bounce them out. So what we have to work with, and it's been pretty helpful that the CCAG staff and the consultant that originally kicked off, I guess a couple of members of the committee weren't here when the consultant from DNGVL kicked off this process last October or something like that. We have 2 new members, but they've done a lot of our calculations for us, and that's kind of what a big part of how they're helping us. So what we have to work with is a greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and it's broken into the whole community and then the municipal uses. So we have data from 2005 and we have data from 2010, and they actually assemble these inventories a few years after, so we won't have 2015 necessarily in the beginning of 2016, but we'll have it, I would say, before 2020. So we have those reports and the data that's listed, and they're basically a lot of spreadsheets with raw data and calculations, and I'm not sure if people want to see that. We could walk through some of that, but I think it's kind of getting into the nuts and bolts that maybe we're hoping to have you guys give us input more on the policy and having the consultant help us with the calculations. So the measures are kind of the meat of this plan. These are the things that we hope to implement now and going forward to 2020 to achieve the reductions that we're hoping to achieve. Some of these things, we've gotten different feedback from the council subcommittee. I guess there was work done on an energy plan several years ago, and some of the direction we got was that we wanted to see what the low-hanging fruit was and go for that first, but we really need these 15% reductions. So we have a broad spread of measures that I think we need to be putting forth an effort into a variety of things to be able to get the amount of greenhouse gas emission reductions we're trying to get.
Do you have that energy plan, or were you able to find a copy of it? The one that they were referring to?
No, we got a little, let me see if they gave us a sense of what they had worked on. I mean, Glenn was still
I was on that committee, so I
Right.
can probably help with that. We actually didn't quite finish. I probably still have whatever document we came up with at home, but it was really kind of a draft, partly because a lot of what we could do then and what we can do now has to do with improving the energy efficiency of buildings. And so we kind of got, I suppose, sidetracked into Energy Upgrade California, which was a set of rebates from federal stimulus money, state government, and the county to try to get homeowners to participate in that. Things like community choice aggregation, that wasn't available at the time, so it's not included in that plan. So as far as I remember, pretty much everything that was included in that plan, as far as we got with it, is included in this one, but there's a lot more added to it.
Okay. One of the other things is when they present the data or when they do the calculations, can we get, I'd like to see them, but at the same time, I'd also like to make sure that they're in a, not on a per capita basis.
I don't know that anything is on a per capita
Okay.
basis.
I just want to make sure, because I think that that's very misleading. I'd like to see it on a some net basis.
Yeah, well, we can talk about some of those calculations that we've delved into when we talk about some of the measures, because we've been collecting data for them to, what is shown on what you have before you, the outline of the plan, was just their kind of order of magnitude calculations before they collected the data from staff. So these aren't the final numbers, but maybe the community choice aggregation is a bad example. That might be as good of a number as we have right now, but they're basing each thing on a past history and a projection. If it's an energy upgrade, what was done under the green building ordinance, what energy upgrades the city has done and what they're projected to do, and they're getting data on that. There is some of it, some assumptions have to be made. When you're talking about a projection into the future, you have to make a reasonable assumption, because
Right.
you don't actually know. But I don't think anything is per capita.
So Karen, just to be clear, when you get these calculations of greenhouse gas savings, for example, under community choice aggregation, 1,407 annual, I assume that's metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent? Below what? I mean, is that below 2005? Is that below business as usual?
Business as usual.
Okay, so we don't know, as these things are expressed now, we don't know how close those are going to get us to reach our target of 15% reductions below 2005.
I wanted to go straight to that. What they did in the first draft, and we talked about a little bit at the subcommittee, and these order of magnitude numbers as they stand only got us halfway to the 15%.
All right, so these would be from business as usual up to what year, do you know?
Up to 2020.
Up to 2020. Okay, all right.
So, and I did ask that question of the consultant when we saw the numbers and added them up, and they suggested we can count greenhouse gas, I'm going to just read her email. We can count greenhouse gas emission savings associated with the California State Renewable Portfolio Standard. The state policy will reduce the carbon intensity of our electricity mix. That's probably to the extent that it doesn't overlap with a CCA.
With CCA, yeah.
We also have not yet included the new construction ordinances for commercial and residential, which should have fairly significant greenhouse gas reductions associated with them. But she also said we'd probably need to be a bit more aggressive on some of the measures. And we have a call with them next week to get their refined numbers, so I think there's another step in terms of...
Okay. Yep. When you do get that call, it would be good to have them set out exactly what these numbers mean? Because that needs to be included in the document if it's to have any meaning for the readers.
Yeah, and so what we're looking at right now is just an outline, and
Okay.
I think all
Okay.
of that will be defined at certain places.
Yeah, I don't mean to nitpick, but that's kind of important to know, below what, savings from what.
Okay, yeah.
And if there's any way we can make it seem, relate it more to reality by example, that would help.
This is just an outline, and we will certainly do that
Yeah.
in the final document.
Can you clarify what you mean when you say that?
More layman's terms.
Layman's term.
1,400 annual MT CO2E.
It means nothing to you?
Okay. How much is that? Enough to fill this room?
Enough to
Fill this
fill,
building?
Yeah,
Oh, you want to,
Example.
yeah.
yeah, is it how much a household uses, so at least an example of how much a household of 2 or 4 uses, so that we have some benchmark for comparison of what this number means,
Yeah. Like, it's very impactful sometimes, 9 million square feet is, 16 Transamerica pyramids.
Just for the committee's information, the average greenhouse gas emissions for an American is between 25 and 30 tons per year.
That is.
We can update that.
25 to 30, so we have to reduce what we're using by half.
15%.
No,
25 to,
we're talking about, in 2005, it was probably about 25 metric tons per person per year, so 15% below that.
okay.
yeah,
But
so
not the 1,400.
Well, but
that's for the whole city.
yeah, that's aggregate, so it's not per person.
Oh, okay.
So the accepted standard is that we're trying to get to the 1990 levels in 2020, and the accepted standard is to take the 2005 and cut back 15%. And that's,
Which should get us to roughly, probably mid-90s somewhere, or something like that.
that's I think the goal of the plan. And our number, I thought was, let's see if I wrote. I think our 15%, I don't know if I put the total down, I thought was something like 2,500 metric tons.
Yeah, that would be a good opener for this whole thing, is what's the aggregate amount? Because all these aggregate amounts could then be, you could sort of sum them up in your head and look at, okay, how close are we to the aggregate target amount?
Right, and which should be priorities because you can get more savings out of them more easily. Okay, good comments. So community choice aggregation, hopefully you all know that the county is taking the lead on this and they're doing a feasibility study, and the council formally agreed to participate, and at this point they're funding all of it, and we were just supplying our electrical energy usage data. And does anybody want more explanation of that? There are a couple of programs there was a law passed in the state that should an agency, an organization adopt a community choice aggregation program, that program is purchasing clean energy or hopefully generating some within their organization. So two counties have done this, Marin County and Sonoma County have community choice aggregation, and as I understand, Sonoma County does generate some energy, but Marin is pretty completely so they're buying solar power from, say, the Mojave Desert or something, and they are still using PG&E's transmission facilities, so you still get the same energy bill, but what you get is about three mailings that say you can participate in this, but you need to opt out if you don't. And in Marin and Sonoma County, they've found that if you participate with something like 35% renewable, it costs about the same as PG&E. but they have a high, maybe a 50%. They have 100% renewable, and it costs 10 or 15% more or something like that. And that's what San Mateo County is studying, what those costs would be. So it seems if you can get an equivalent cost for your energy bill to get 35% renewable, you would think that would be a no-brainer. And it's an opt-out, so most people are staying in.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Do we have do we know how long the feasibility study is going to take, roughly?
I asked that question. Figured that it would be asked. And I think they expected, I think when they started they said a year, or let me find out for sure.
Okay, it's not a great moment, I'm just curious.
Is this something in the future where we can actually contribute energy to it?
I don't know, maybe.
Like say we did have a solar farm, say we did have solar arrays on all of the buildings in Crocker Industrial
Sure.
Park,
Yeah.
so that we could actually contribute to the
The city, yes, I think so, because when the county did the kickoff and was just introducing and trying to get all the agencies to participate in the feasibility study, they wanted to talk about Brisbane and the Baylands and the potential there.
Okay.
They were interested in that as a source.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, was this what Glenn was talking about? We are participating in the Energy Upgrade California program. This item is to figure out how we can get people using audits and energy upgrades and rebates and all the programs that are out there now that people aren't necessarily aware of. This is these are the residential. These are residential versus commercial.
Yeah.
I think we had, or are they combined?
Shouldn't we add a bullet point there? Because I remember when reading this, looking at commercial, there was a line in that talked about expanding that, what is that called, that free energy assessment thing to residential, so maybe we should include that here?
Is it in things for the county to do? So the county started or has a program right now to audit small businesses for energy upgrades and walk them through the process of completing energy upgrades and getting rebates, and they are going to do a pilot program for residential. So we might have put it in the county. What we were asking that the county do is pick that up and offer it for residences. Because I don't know if that it exists now.
Right, but we could put a bullet point saying push for.
Yes, we could, yes.
Push for the county to expand that program to residences.
So the measures we're trying to keep as things that are calculatable.
All right.
And it is in we have a list of things that we think the county should take the lead on because they're bigger, larger order than something that a tiny city could initiate. So that's a big part of what the things that the ways that you're going to make businesses and residences reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, be more energy efficient, and use renewables. There needs to be, and the county taking the lead on enough of different programs to help us with that. It's not something that a small city is, and everybody shouldn't be reinventing the wheel, putting together a program, and your neighboring city, a mile away is putting together the same program. So we're trying to get some of those efforts coordinated. But that's a little bit later in this outline. So for both residential and commercial, we are trying to promote energy efficiency through programs that are available, through audits, through rebates, and we've kind of put some bullet points in. I guess item C, we've gotten a little bit specific in asking for a residential energy conservation ordinance. San Francisco has one now, and when a home is sold, they need to, I guess it's not an audit, they need to have an inspection done and a checklist completed that shows that they've made certain energy upgrades, and they have to be made before a home is sold. That's,
This one says it's either the buyer or the seller negotiate it.
Yeah, somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to
It's
do it.
in the,
It's in there.
it becomes a part of the
Negotiation.
title
right, the
transfer.
exchange of ownership.
Kind of like when you have to get your car smogged before you can sell it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a strong one. It doesn't exist in San Mateo County, but it's
Great.
a way to make things happen. It goes a lot far beyond encouragement.
There's no reason we can't enact something like that in Brisbane without the county participating. And certainly at the cost of the houses that are being sold now, it should be there.
And that's the feedback I got about San Francisco's, is that for the people tend to generally be fixing up their homes to sell them, and at the cost that they're selling for, it's not that much of an expense, and that people are looking for that when they buy. So
That does not mean that the real estate industry will be pleased. Just
right.
What else is new?
You know what? There's not going to be a real estate industry if we don't take care of the climate crisis.
Exactly.
So jump on board.
I told them that myself.
Yep. If you're paying, $800,000, $900,000 for a house, you can spend some to upgrade. And I mean,
Yeah, I mean, this is a good time to do it. If,
Yep.
every-
Especially with the economy the way it is.
used
Right.
car dealers didn't like it when that smog thing came along either.
No.
And it's
guess what?
made a huge difference in California. Huge difference.
And as I understand in San Francisco, it's very matter of doing business. It's been around since either 2006 or 2008, and
We're behind the times.
no, they don't squawk about it anymore. And Glenn, feel free to jump in if I'm not highlighting some of the stuff.
I have been. But okay. So what I was talking about is under item D, I think.
Commercial.
No, I guess not. I saw it somewhere. Maybe it's where it's under that list of county things that we want the county to do.
Yes, on the residential, it is.
So I do have a question. So under item D, we've got greenhouse gas savings, 16 annual metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. It would be nice to know, and I think the community would probably like to know, what a little bit about how that estimate was derived, and it could be something as simple as 10% participation rate, or whatever the assumption was that they used, because they clearly used an assumption of some sort.
Yes.
And it's probably based on participation rate, but we don't know what that is. And it would be helpful, I think, and make the report a lot more comprehensible than just to have these numbers there. It's contextualizing the numbers. And I'm curious to know, too, like,
Right.
what sort of participation rate were they thinking about?
Yeah, that's a good point. Trying to see if I had it in the notes from our conversations, but I think I'd be guessing.
I mean,
I know there was one they talked about 5%, but it may not have been this.
one thing about the county doing the numbers is it saves a lot of work, but it also means it's sort of like this black box spitting things out, and here it is, and you have no idea what's going on in there.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's, I'm glad you're on the subcommittee, but I'm a detail person too, so they're not just going to give us 16. And like I said, they gave this back to us when we gave them the measures, and they didn't have any of our data, so now we've sent them the data, and I wouldn't be comfortable putting this out without combing through it myself and knowing the whole process as an engineer, so.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is not even so much checking their figures, it's just what, on what are these figures based?
Well, right, and that too, if they're saying 5% or are they saying 10%, does that
Yeah.
make sense? What happened the 5 years before? How can you be comfortable making that projection? So
Yeah.
we'll definitely get into that. And then beyond community measures on energy, we have some municipal measures. Enroll in an offset program. That's, yes, well, I don't know where they come up with the 83.
One of the things that's not mentioned there is outdoor lighting at recreational facilities in Brisbane that the city owns and runs, and I think that needs to be included. I think there should be timers on the fields and the tennis courts that need to be activated by humans after, every so often, so that we don't just have the lights on out there all the time the way that they seem to be a lot.
I was going to bring that up too, because I found my original notes from one of our first meetings, and we'd actually talked about a lighting ordinance.
Yeah.
And there is a model lighting ordinance provided by the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, which somebody could look at.
Well, like there's a lot of places where they have, timers that you have to manually turn it on, and then it goes for like a half an hour, and then you have to turn it on again if you want to keep going. And really, it's much better than having the tennis courts lit for hours and hours and hours, and having the fields lit for hours and hours and hours when there aren't people there playing.
I understood. Well, a number of years ago, we did have those at the tennis courts, and I'm not sure, maybe they're not working or.
I don't know.
Notice that a lot of businesses seem to have recently installed new lights that are really glary, and so a lighting ordinance would be maybe something we should look at.
I've asked for a lighting ordinance for a long time because the amount of light pollution that comes out of Crocker Industrial Park is ridiculous.
Right, and there's I would say that probably from the safety side, they want some lighting at night in some places. I know that at Sierra Point in empty fields, they want to have some lighting so that it doesn't end up being like a location that crimes are committed. But for example, the city's done a number of energy upgrades, and we've done some building ones, but we're starting on site ones, and we've put LED lights at Mission Blue Center parking lot, and now they've audited for us the pool site, and we asked to just have a couple of lights that stay on all night, and the rest of them would turn off at a certain time, plus making them all LEDs. And they're also looking at the community park, so we're doing that with city facilities. But to go further and to have guidance for commercial properties, private properties is a good idea.
How would motion lights, how would those work?
So those can be difficult in an area that has wind or stray animals or.
True.
But, it's one thing to light your parking lot. It's another thing to light up the sky, which a lot of them have really, like you'll drive home some nights and Crocker Industrial Park looks like, an arena. There's so much ambient light coming up. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So.
I think it'd be good for somebody maybe to look up this model lighting ordinance and see what it covers, because it might include shading, to keep what Michelle's talking about from happening. But I don't know, because I haven't looked it up. I just found these notes. I probably should have looked it up a long time ago, but I didn't. So it's the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America.
Okay.
On the safety side, I do know from my children's age group where they're not driving yet that they feel fairly unsafe walking around Brisbane at night because there's not enough light.
Really?
Yeah. There's too many places where there's gaps of a block or more long where they're in complete shade or dark shadows.
In terms of the street lighting.
I don't know if that's a Brisbane thing or if that's a PG&E thing, but something to be thinking about.
Yeah, it's really hard because then you try to make the lights that are there illuminate further, and we're under a street light, and it's like daylight outside.
Well, they could put more lights
hate
up.
it.
Yeah.
And, more LED lights up.
Lesser.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the caution, is that it's safe and that stuff areas aren't too dark that would create hazards, nuisances, or whatever. But if you have specific locations, we can look at them as a public works department.
Yeah.
We added a street light up on Kings Road, and we didn't advertise it very much because I assumed that we would hear back from a lot of people that said, "Oh, I need a street light here, I need one here," and we're trying to balance that. We're trying to do enough, but not too much.
You can take ours away and move it somewhere else.
To one
Amen.
down.
I could change, yeah. I had to put a cover over our door, glass door, yeah. I had to put a covering over the glass door because of the light. But
Yeah, it's so
I'd rather
bright.
have the light than the dark and shadows, so I don't complain.
Might just be a study to do over the whole city to see where you need light and where you don't need light.
Yeah, probably the problem is like if you have a view and then they put a street light there,
Yeah.
it's really not nice. It's really
Yeah.
harsh because they put the street lights so high instead of having like low lights where people are actually walking.
It's with illumination.
I wonder if the city could maybe explore some ground level illumination that would, sort of light the sidewalks so you don't trip over anything, and, look at different kinds of lighting rather than the tall street lights.
Vandal-proof and not obstructing sidewalks.
There you
I
go.
see.
That's very vandal-proof.
That's why they're up there.
Magically.
Yeah.
And they also, I'm sorry, one light can cover a larger area
Yeah.
when it's higher.
So much for that plan.
Oh,
well.
it doesn't mean,
I think it's a good plan. It should be studied.
yeah, it's still something to look into.
Yeah, because also
some
with the
places
higher
See what other
lights,
cities are doing.
you're still in shade if there's trees that are, and so all kinds of issues.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine we would take out all the street lights, but there could be ways to, in areas that are dark, put some of these. We've purchased some for the, get it right, the lower Bicentennial Walkway that are concrete bollard vandal-proof, so those are going to go in next month, and that might be something to see how they work and see if they are.
That'd be vandal
Left alone.
resistant.
I've been corrected on that before. Thank you. Vandal
There's a
resistant.
challenge out there.
Yeah, really. Okay, let's move on to the next.
I wanted to just back up to A for a minute.
Okay.
Enroll in an offset program. I would like to add a word to that, or maybe a phrase. The city will consider enrollment in a vetted energy offset program or a state of California approved energy offset program, because there are lots of dodgy offsets out there. So we should put some kind of qualifier in there.
Definitely. And that may be in the more in-depth, what's getting put into the plan, and as these are notes. I know that we've talked about that, so,
I would also put it at the end of the list rather than at the beginning of the list.
okay. We've, environmental preferred purchasing policy, there's definitely room for improvement there. In the municipal level, we're doing some things. You guys are using your monitors to see the meeting agendas and the reports, and some of those steps are happening, but to have a policy and to get more people educated and on board is definitely something that is a hole that should be filled. We've proposed it for a project for summer interns to kind of draft a policy, so perhaps we can move forward on that and get something that we could look at in detail. That would be a good thing for this committee to kind of chew through and refine with us.
So Karen, on number D, it says the city will explore the potential for solar panels. Why are they just exploring? Why aren't they doing? Is there a reason?
I don't know if I can answer that exactly. I know there's always been a goal to do so, and I was involved at some points when the city hall was or to City Hall and other facilities. When City Hall was remodeled, the roof was designed to allow solar to be put in. We've got the PVC white reflective roofing. We've got an area set aside for the photovoltaic equipment. And we had a couple of companies approach us about power purchase agreements. And to my knowledge, they're pretty new. The schools have done a lot of them, but a lot of public agencies haven't. And I think that we talked to the council subcommittee. The idea was kind of pretty new at the time, but banks are coming in and providing funding so that an agency signs a power purchase agreement and they agree to purchase energy at a rate that's not fixed, that's increasing by a certain amount a year, that's less than the PG&E rate. So that bank pays for the installation of solar and sells you the energy, and they make some money out of the conversation too. Obviously, they're large banks, and they're looking for big projects. So I don't think there were enough of them out there for us to know that this was the best deal. Bank comes in.
We just do it ourselves, and we're going to have
Do you
the
need it?
CCA, the community aggregation. We can sell power back to the grid.
Well, I think if you just did the roof, it wouldn't even supply power to the building completely.
Portion.
Yeah, it was a large portion, but it wasn't even, there wouldn't be extra.
Well, there's
So-
also Peninsula Sun Share, since they're doing it for the residents, maybe they don't do it for the city too.
I don't know if that applies to
Business, I know.
businesses.
It should.
So that was kind of the holdup when I was a little bit more involved. It's kind of, I saw it as like, it's like having a mortgage, but if there was only one product out there, you might be a little skeptical as to whether you were getting the best deal. It hasn't become widespread enough. Since then, I think there are a lot more of them, and it's a lot more of a common way to deal with purchasing solar without paying. I mean, I think there's an issue with paying for it. It's probably like on the order of $1 million, $800,000, $1 million to buy solar panels, and
That much.
that's it, because it was budgeted some number of years back.
Is there anybody on city staff that's sort of charged with keeping on top of it and maybe revisiting?
Yeah, and the Public Works Director is working with the Council Facilities Subcommittee, but I just don't actually know where it is right at this point.
Because maybe we could get a group rate and also put it on the Harbor Master Building and the firehouse. And
Well,
Loose
the
End.
companies ask you if you're interested in doing solar farms,
Yeah.
and some ideas, at one point there was an idea to do it at the entrance to town on the northeast corner of Bayshore and Tunnel Road, and, right, it's a piece of land, but some people don't.
It's different putting it on a building that's already existing. And, we have a lot of buildings.
And at the time, this was probably about 5 years ago, you can get a lot more area. So there's also the idea of putting it in parking lots. But those, when you have to build the structure, there's additional cost, and it wasn't penciling out. I'm understanding that the cost keeps coming down, continues to come down, so
Well, I hate to be rude, but I do have to go. So,
still
You're in
looking
charge.
for a chair.
Ty, you're it.
Okay. Well, let's,
Tina's not.
he's in a meeting.
Oh, right, you told me.
Yeah. So, but we still have a quorum, so let's keep going.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Bye, Michael.
Bye.
Aye.
We've audited a lot of our city facilities, and it's through San Mateo County Energy Watch, but they continue to come back and re-audit because there's always new technology and there's always more things the city can do. So those things are on the list. Why don't we move to sustainable streets? We wanted to put some measures in that dealt with how people get around and how they use energy that way. Public EV charging. I like that Natalie said we will install public EV charging stations here. We're working on a grant to get at least one, possibly two EV charging stations. The grant was just released from Bay Area Air Quality Management District, or they have a grant. We're not sure how much of a station it funds, and hopefully it's more than just, the initiative kind of 20%. Hopefully it's significant, but we're still, it was just released, so we're still trying to figure
What
out.
happened with our car share?
We haven't.
It is? Is it being used?
What I hear, the feedback that I've heard is that it's used a bit on weekends, but not as much on weekdays. But they're still interested in keeping it, so.
We should publicize it again on the city, on the blog and on the board, I think. Yeah. And it should be included in here that under sustainable streets that we continue to support car sharing, different car sharing options.
I think we have a transportation section in here somewhere, don't we? Or is this it?
Yeah, that's what Sustainable Streets is.
Okay.
So, incentivize local hiring. These were ideas that came from the subcommittee. Business license fees that were lower for companies that hire local, that have local residents, and higher for people that are all commuting from outside. And I guess that's said two different ways here.
What about
Delete one.
increasing the tax on truck hauling fees if they're not biodiesel? There's a lot of really old, ugly trucks on the road in Brisbane, in particular, doing the hauling, and there's going to be more and more and more. And I think that they should be assessed at a higher rate than ones that run on biodiesel.
You mean, are you talking about trucks registered in Brisbane, or?
No, I'm talking about the ones that that we collect truck hauling fees on, and ones that have, permits to run around in Brisbane all the time, such as the ones from the Brisbane Soils Processing and the soil stockpiling, and then there's going to be a lot of trucks that'll be going back and forth with the, as the Baylands gets worked, and the trucks that come in and out of the quarry, and even the different freight forwarders and trucks that operate in Brisbane. If they don't use biofuel, they should be charged truck fees.
That could have unintended consequences, because there are biofuels and biofuels. And the good kind of biofuel is made out of used frying fat. The bad kind is made out of palm oil that's harvested from places where rainforest used to be. So I would be really reluctant to require biofuel because some of it is actually worse than the alternative, and it's really hard to tell, what kind it is. And
So along the same kind of thought process, without maybe specifying that, what do you suggest?
I don't know if you can specify it that closely. I think there's, because I think there's one sustainable biofuel gas station over in Berkeley or something. I don't think it's realistic right now to do that. And I'm not even sure that it is a, fully vetted sustainable biofuel outlet. But there are some really horrifying things that go on in connection with the production of biofuel that we don't want to support.
Can we could put it under aspirational and have something that's investigated at, it's just a placeholder.
Maybe, although I think, some vaguely worded thing about doing everything we can to include, to encourage electric transportation or, sustainable biofuel transportation rather than being too specific.
What about the stuff that the garbage trucks are running on now?
That's methane. That's methane. Mm-hmm. And methane, to run a vehicle on methane, you have to convert the whole engine of a vehicle. I mean, you can't just put methane in a regular vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know.
Whereas biodiesel, you can, if you have a diesel engine, you can put biodiesel in it. But you cannot put methane in a diesel engine or a gasoline engine. It's entirely different tankage.
Well, and I think Michelle's comment would be if it costs more to run something that's not using a renewable or lower energy using product, then it would just cost more, so that would be the incentive.
Well, but there's costing more, a couple cents per gallon versus it's costing more that you have to go replace your entire vehicle because it can't run on methane.
No,
Okay.
we've taken notes, we can put something, we can try to redraft something or bring it back and talk about it. Where are we? Municipal measures. I guess we're looking at a fleet replacement kind of policy here, and we have a program. We're hoping to be able to, in some of the public works fleets, the lighter duty trucks and some of the other vehicles, to replace some of those with what we are saying is fuel efficient vehicles or vehicles with lower or zero emissions. For example, one of I think the Vector is on schedule to be replaced, and we're looking at compressed gas for that. And I understand that we're able to purchase compressed natural gas from Recology, and they are using it in their fleet. So our franchise agreement would allow us to fuel up there and purchase it from them at their cost.
So that's basically methane, and it's a specialized vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's where we are without getting into land use stuff. That's what we did for transit, kind of transportation, streets. And I think we put in aspirational and county goals. We put some stuff about public transit and improving it, and shuttles, and there's always room for that. Complete Streets is interested in that too. Under water, some of the things that we have done are give us greenhouse reduction gas savings. We want to promote rebates. We are doing landscape audits, obviously, with the water conservation requirements and the drought. This stuff is happening now, so I think it's fairly robust.
Oops, sorry. I think I just read today or yesterday in the San Francisco Chronicle that San Francisco is considering requiring all new buildings, probably there's some sort of size threshold, to have gray water systems. And maybe we should think about that for Brisbane too, for new construction. And I forget what the thresholds are, and I don't even know where it is in the legislative process, but it's being talked about.
I'm not crazy about artificial turf.
Me either.
I think that needs to go away.
Yeah, I agree.
Artificial turf is not good for the land.
And with that, how did that get? Was that the subcommittee?
Where is that?
How did that creep in there?
Who put that?
Get rid of it.
Yeah, I think we knew that was the feedback, so maybe it wasn't meant to be left in there. I did want to touch on this. I think this came from the subcommittee to talk about reduced landscape watering to 20% of Brisbane total water footprint. I think when we were going to talk about this at the last meeting, I got some numbers. I definitely wanted to hear what the committee had to say about this. I think we're 40% of Brisbane's water footprint is landscape water now. And, there's obviously a lot of landscaping that's ornamental and is helpful for improves the aesthetics of the city, but we do have parks and fields that are used, that have recreation uses, and we have a pool, and, well, that's not landscape watering, so I'm off topic, but
Here's the thing.
it's something to wrestle with.
It is an issue to wrestle with, but landscape watering on a certain level is not awful in that it puts water back into the system it's not an end use. Okay, I mean, water goes in and it seeps into the ground. It goes into to the underground springs. It helps the frogs. It helps the amphibians. If you're just out there spraying it in the air and just using it to water a bunch of lawn, is a little bit different than quote unquote landscape watering, and so I don't think that you necessarily can set it at a percentage like that. I think it has to be done judiciously and not wastefully. But I don't think that it's the worst possible use for water. You know what I mean?
This is just reducing the footprint, not eliminating it altogether.
Yeah, but 20% of our overall water use is.
That would be half, probably. It's about, I see I had 42% for.
Right, and one of the things that happens when you do that is that you kind of change the environment, because then the plants aren't taking it up and transpiring it, and so then everything gets drier, and then you don't have, the trees, look what's happening with the trees right now.
Yeah.
You know?
But we're in a drought.
I know, but also, like right now, I would, in some cases, increase landscape watering to keep those trees alive, because they're important oxygenators. I mean, that is a high value use of landscape water. I've been watering my trees because they're important. They feed birds, they provide nesting places, etc. So to categorically call it landscape watering and to put that kind of stricture on it, it seems like a good idea, but when you get down into the nitty-gritty, it makes things worse.
I agree. Brisbane's per capita water use is so low that I don't really see landscape watering as a problem unless it's a golf course. But I was in South San Francisco a few days ago, and all their street trees are dead. Yeah. It's ugly. It's a shame. Now they're going to have to be taken down because they're dead. They're going to fall on people. And I swear South San Francisco is a lot hotter than Brisbane is, because they never had as much greenery as we did to begin with, and now a lot of what they did have is dead. So I totally agree with Michelle. I think keeping trees alive especially is really important, and it's going to be important to keep temperatures down as well as all the things that she mentioned.
Yeah, and the amphibians and the dragonflies and the insects that all live off of that. I mean, there's a whole urban ecosystem that's going on, and some of it is fed by landscape watering. And if you want an example of how taking down trees or letting trees go away dramatically changes the environment, you just need to look at Owl Canyon. I mean, it got scraped clean. And the temperature in Owl Canyon is completely different than it used to be. The amount of drainage and water that's captured by fog, completely different. I mean, the whole landscape there has completely changed because those trees are gone. And we're essentially doing the same thing by letting our large trees be neglected due to this drought. And so to do that with landscape watering, I think, is really penny wise and pound foolish in the long run. It will worsen our problem with climate change at this point. And even though we do have a drought, don't flush your toilet as often, and water your trees. Take your shower water your trees, water your plants.
Well, I think that's a very good point, Michelle, because what I've noticed I live at the ridge, at the HOA, and obviously we've planted grass there, green grass and, trees. And I think what I've noticed is that if every household collects their water and waters some of the trees outside, we wouldn't need as much landscaping water. And I think maybe this bullet point needs to be modified to say, can we collect water instead of running it down the drain when you are, rinsing your vegetables and fruits, collect that and water the trees outside, but don't necessarily just let around the landscaping sprinklers out, right? So maybe this bullet point can be modified, because on the ridge around the Crocker Park, I just see a lot of landscaping water being wasted. I hear you about the trees, but there is also a lot of green grass, and very often when the grass is watered, it's watering the sidewalks and the streets as well. And to me, that seems like a lot of water wasted, right? So maybe thinking about more efficient and smarter ways of watering the trees, I totally agree.
Grass.
We should, keep the trees alive, and but trying to collect maybe water that's currently, clean water is running down the drain, and figuring out how to use it for landscaping.
Yeah, and when we do landscaping watering, ground watering instead of aeration watering, where they squirt it up in the air, is really what we need to have in here, not percentages of water that we're not going to use. And maybe not mowing the lawn as often, so that it has a chance to go to, produce some. I noticed out at the marina, this is why I bring this up, a lot of the lawns out there that aren't being watered as much are growing a little longer. They're all flowering, which you never see. They have all these little yellow flowers all over them, which is good, because they're building up some seed stock for when it does rain and the grass is dead, But it does. So it's how we water, not how much we water. We need to water smart, and so it really needs to talk about ground watering, not sprinklers, making sure the water and all the ground watering is directed on permeable surfaces and not streets and sidewalks. I mean, it's that kind of consciousness, not necessarily a percentage that's going to help us.
That's what the bullet point above it says, is to promote information programs for water efficient landscaping. So maybe we can kind of integrate what you just said into that to include landscape watering. Because, when I read that, water efficient landscaping is talking about landscape watering. And if you have efficient landscape watering, you, by definition, are either going to reduce the amount of water you use, or you're going to have more water to use for more plants. And in my mind, you would pocket the savings of the water rather than planting more plants, because now you have effectively more water because you're more efficient. So we do want to say, ultimately, we do want to save water, but is your objection simply with pegging it at a 20%? It just seems arbitrary to say that.
Yep. That is my number one objection.
Where does the greenhouse gas savings come from if we don't actually reduce the water? These are all good goals to have ordinances and have rebates for fixtures and whatever, but where does the actual CO2 equivalent savings?
About, we'll have to 15% or so of California's electricity is used to pump water.
So if we don't use less water, we're not saving any CO2.
Pretty much.
So we have to save water. We have to reduce water in order to save greenhouse gases.
Kima?
Yeah.
What we mentioned earlier, and Glenn asked about these calculations as well, is that are the consultants, Betty and Ben, that you saw last year in October, they're the ones that helped collect data and kind of made assumptions and calculations to come up with these numbers for our draft measures. They're they're not solid numbers, and we submitted more data for them to update these numbers, and we're going to talk about them next week with them again.
Okay.
But they're just kind of approximate.
So the 20% isn't tied to the 6th annual.
Probably.
So the number 20% in savings isn't directly tied. We could get rid of that without change. I guess that's where I was going with that, is we could remove the thing about 20% without changing that top line number of 6th annual.
I think, that 6 was their order of magnitude. They ran through a set of calcs before they had our data. So I think we'd have to, if you wanted specifics, we have to look at what the final number is and how they got the calculation. But I don't think that that's an absolute, that you take that last bullet point out and you lose these credits. So.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Plus, the way that last bullet point is worded, what's important here is the total water footprint of Brisbane. So that's the only thing that's going to reduce the greenhouse gases. Reducing landscaping watering to 20% of whatever Brisbane's total water footprint is not necessarily going to reduce greenhouse gases at all. The only thing that will do that is reducing the overall water footprint.
But
So it's just kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense the way it is right now.
I think to your point, Glenn, it might be better to just say reduce overall watering because that would be tied to that to some amount. Maybe it's not 6, maybe it's some different number. But if we reduce our overall amount, let's say we say Brisbane as a whole has to reduce by 25%. Is that what Jerry Brown is requiring us anyway?
That's
right
for
now?
the whole state. Brisbane, the Hetch Hetchy system has to reduce by 8% because our per capita use is already low.
Right. So if we set a goal, then we would have a series of, pie wedges, each of which we need to consider how much we can reduce to get to that overall reduction. And we would look at, the water conservation for residential use, how much savings can we get out of that? And then we look at, our industrial uses and our other uses. And for each one of those uses, we have to either make an explicit decision not to reduce it, to Michelle's point that, hey, this is good use and we don't need to reduce it, but then we have to look at how to get the savings out of the remaining pieces. And so at the end of the day, I think Glenn's absolutely right. We should look at that as total water rather than simply an arbitrary thing for one sector of water use.
Right, and when we look at total water, water that goes down the sewer has a higher carbon footprint than water that goes into the ground, because it has to be processed, and that is also an energy use.
So we just have no idea what they were thinking about when they said we could save 6 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent.
I don't have that now.
That's another one where the assumptions need to be laid out. We have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. Should we go on to solid waste? Yeah. Let's move on to solid waste. That's a nice weighty subject.
So, this one's called higher diversion rate goal. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we're going to set a higher goal in this 5-year period, but we definitely want to make sure that the food scrap program picks up and expands as much as possible. We talked about doing a survey, finding out why people weren't participating and seeing how we could promote it better, because programs like these take some time to take hold really entirely within a community. I'm sure probably a lot of people are composting their food scraps, and probably out of the committee a lot of you are, and a lot of your staff is, but not necessarily everyone in the city. So that's kind of what A was about, was promoting the program and trying to expand it in any way that we could participate, and also seeing what it would take to carry it on to the businesses. And South San Francisco Scavenger spoke at the committee last fall, and I don't remember what they exactly said, but it is a goal to start doing the food composting in businesses too, commercial areas. So, we can stay involved and encourage them and see how, put surveys together and see how effective it is and get feedback. So that's what that one is. Commercial recycling ordinance.
I think that's important.
That's in place, and I don't know how much Barbara Bernardini talked about that when South San Francisco Scavenger was here, but that's mandated, and they're very much on top of that, because we've sat in on some of the meetings that they've had with, we have to report to the state, to Cal Recycle, and anybody that's not participating with South San Francisco Scavenger, they have to go out and survey, because some of them have alternate ways of recycling. They recycle their cardboard and they get paid for it. They have other means, but they're individually interviewed and it's confirmed that they are recycling.
Okay.
So do you know why zero carbon dioxide equivalent savings is associated with commercial recycling? Is it because they're already doing it, that we're assuming that we're not going to save any more carbon in the future, or what?
'cause all of them-
That's a good question. They asked us for some data, and maybe they just didn't
Oh, okay.
calculate.
Maybe they should have just put X.
Yeah.
Yeah, they, I feel like we'll have to, I think there's curiosity in how these were calculated. I think maybe we'll try and ask what assumptions they made for each of these numbers when we get to talk to them next week.
Yeah, I'd love to see something like that.
Yeah, we will. We will be doing that.
One thing I'd like to see is a day, like maybe every 2 months, where they pick up fabric garbage separately. That was one of the things they talked about when they came here, and that's one of the things that's really bad to put into the landfill. Is like used clothes, old fabric, old, that kind of thing. And I know we have parka and all that, but people just don't do that, or they don't want to they think their stuff is too worn out. So we should have a special pickup for that type of waste materials.
What's parka?
Parka is one of those people that go around and pick up stuff on this, you put out. It's like a collection of
Like a Goodwill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a different?
Yeah.
You get that little yellow thing in the.
Oh, right.
and
That,
right.
okay.
You
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
out, put a little sign.
And a lot of stuff that
Recycle.
Parka picks up is stuff that's reusable and they resell it to foreign countries and stuff like that after it goes through a whole cycle of stuff. But just plain old waste, of fabric waste, we should have a special pickups for those kinds of things that are outside the reuse, recycle thing so that they get properly disposed of.
Well, yeah, like clothing scraps can get recycled too into various kinds
Right.
of insulation and.
But once they go into the garbage stream, they don't get sorted out. And if you had special pickup for that kind of thing, they would get pre-sorted and be able to be recycled properly. And I'm sure there are other materials that are like that.
Right. We'll look at where that can go.
Yeah. I just keep thinking about all the stuff I saw in those damn dumpsters down there that could have been recycled, repurposed, reused had it been sorted properly. I mean, you're not going to put your used icky underwear out there for parka, so it goes in the garbage. It shouldn't.
Ones with the holes in them.
Yeah, it should go into a special garbage that gets recycled,
Maybe
Okay.
just having a collection canister, where you can drop it off.
As long as it's in a controlled environment so it doesn't become the
Moldy and-
dumpster from hell again.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Okay. C, sustainable vendor policy.
Yeah.
We talked about this, maybe it appears, the waste attendant, I think, we all think there definitely needs to be more education and practice by people. Some people compost and recycle and have no problem, and some people are still on the learning curve on that, and that's the feedback we've got, is that when someone's at those containers directing, then it runs a lot more smoothly. So that's kind of part of a policy. That'd be a good policy, and we can require vendors to do that and just kind of ramp that whole function up from.
Yeah, I've been seeing that more and more at different events, that somebody sits by the trash and helps you pick where to put stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have that at the community park this year, at the community day.
Well, hopefully we'll have this adopted, but we can still try to be implementing as we're getting this adopted.
As much as we can.
All sector? Are we down to all sector?
Yeah, yard waste, just to not move too quickly.
Well, when they say landscapers diverting it from the landfill, but we already collect yard waste separately, don't we?
Well, what happens with large landscapers? They come in and they fill up a truck with, like where they cut down a tree and they do this and they do that. And then where do they take it? So,
Right, so all the city ones are putting those in to, we're diverting ours, but any private businesses that are working in town aren't necessarily required to.
we need to make sure that we make that easy and affordable for them, because in the past there's been dumping of yard waste material in the canyons, and that is not acceptable.
Right.
It doesn't it work with like residential residential building permits that you have to show where the waste goes if you're doing like a remodel?
Construction and demolition.
Right, the contractor actually has to get a thing from the landfill or wherever it is that he took it, showing this is where he disposed it. So is that the case?
That's the case for construction.
Right.
material,
So
yeah.
what about having something like that for organic yard waste or whatever, that the landscape contractor or gardener or whatever has to demonstrate with a slip of, hey, here's where I took your load of.
It's just that would work for any permits, but that's happening through the permit process, and we're not regulating necessarily if.
Maybe as part of the
Someone cut down your
licensing
tree.
process, or
Yeah.
A lot of the yard work that happens here is just casual. I mean, they don't necessarily.
yeah. Well, then how much of it is it? How much waste is actually being generated if it's casual?
A lot.
Quite a
Well, then it's not casual, is it?
Well, it's casual as far as the city of Brisbane's concerned.
Yeah, so
Well,
that,
it's economic activity that would potentially be taxed or whatever. So there might be other issues. If it's underground economy, then there's other issues besides yard waste where it's being diverted, such as
like trash.
collection of taxes and things like that as well.
Well, yeah.
That's part of the reason we're ending up with so much trash on San Bruno Mountain. I'm convinced of it, is the informal trash hauling businesses that use Tunnel Road and Guadalupe Canyon Road as dump sites for non-yard waste, for mattresses and old
And yard
cans
waste.
and whatever.
Yeah.
So, and cracking down on them seems to be just about impossible, because a lot of them aren't originating in Brisbane. They're,
so everyone's in favor of getting an ordinance or getting some way to regulate this.
Yeah.
Good. The next one came from the subcommittee. I kind of thought maybe it was a little bit strong, explore banning gas-powered lawn equipment citywide, because it seems like a lot to ask everyone that has a gas lawnmower or weed eater to get rid of it and get an electric one instead. I don't know how many people do that themselves, or how many people hire, what you feel as
And suggest.
people that live here.
There's some issues with that. Like leaf blowers, those are horrible.
Yep.
I hate them. And they run on like one cycle engines that pollute like crazy. But then what do you do when you've got like a backyard that's really big and you have to weed whip it? You don't have a 100-foot extension cord to go out there and,
Well, that's kind of the thought, is that it's a little more challenging to do it with electric, definitely.
Yeah, I'd want to see exactly what we'd be getting for that before we banned it, because you're imposing a cost on people, and if the savings in terms of CO2 is zero, then essentially we're making people bear an expense without actually having any benefit.
Yeah. And we have, it's hard because we have weed abatement ordinances in this town already. And so,
they can't use
and
their
then you
product.
can't tell them they can't use a weed whipper that's gas powered. I mean, we used, sometimes we use gas powered weed whippers on the mountain too for habitat restoration. So that's a really tough one. That's one of those ones that's a little bit of the razor's edge, which way does it go?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I would ban leaf blowers in a heartbeat. But other people would be like, well, then you want me to sweep it all day? Or what? I don't know.
Just let the stuff lay there on top of your dead lawn.
Yeah, that's what I would do, but my yard's no show place.
Start composting for next year's zero water,
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And then you guys are going to buy everything environmentally from now on. That's it. Tell Stuart. It's right there. Municipal measures.
Yes.
No more fancy paper you
I would maybe consider either also adding the word sustainable or recycled, because recycled simply means that it was made from materials that were, recycled, whereas sustainable embodies a lot of other factors that go into the life cycle of the product.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sustainable.
I mean,
recycled.
for example, reused is better than recycled.
Oh, yeah.
True, okay. Sustainable and or recycled, or sustainable instead of recycled.
Yeah, or just say recycled and sustainable, or recycled or sustainable, or yeah, however.
Okay.
You could add the word reused in there, too.
We talked a bit about a green business program. There's a county program. Unfortunately, Barbara tried to do an application for her business and found out that Brisbane does not participate because there's a cost to the city. I think when we get to the point to finalize this list, I think it was like $1,000
Yeah,
annually. So hopefully we'll have some idea of the cost of the other items and
city.
the savings.
I think the $1,000 was for the city, and then is it free to businesses?
I think it was
then?
free to the businesses, yeah. But is that, if we had $1,000 to spend, would we want to spend it on this? That was what the subcommittee wasn't
You
sure
know,
of.
it's really hard to think about that right now when we are
So
playing
early
a
in,
budget that's like over $1.5 million in the red. And then you're going to cheap out on $1,000 to encourage local businesses to get a green certification. I don't know, there's something wrong with that picture there.
We do have the small business audits going on right now, so I think that kind of helps.
well, I don't know that, if that would get them all the way to being a green business. I think this deserves a little more investigation, and how robust, Barbara could have told us how robust requirements were, but how used it is, how many businesses in the county actually are labeled that way, and how much that's influencing people to use those businesses versus other ones is part of the factor here.
I mean,
It seems that if it were widely used, that we would see some evidence of it. I don't think I've ever noticed a business that was green business certified.
We'll swear in the county.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it seems to me that $1,000 for the 5 annual whatever is that million tons or what is the
Metric ton.
metric tons? So it seems it's $1,000 is a small price to pay for 5 metric tons of savings, but then again, it's compared to what other uses could that money be put.
It's also an assumption. And I'd be curious to know what assumption that's based on.
Yeah, well,
$1,000 to a whole bunch of businesses,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a good bang for
Maybe we
the
should
buck.
compare it directly against carbon offset purchases.
yeah.
That'd be
Yeah, that one should really be revisited because it seems like it's penny wise and pound foolish.
I agree.
Even if we had one company who went for it totally, it would make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing it says there is set goals for participation, that the assumption to get to that 5 annual metric tons, you have to reach a certain level of participation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, aspirational goals.
So this list was things that we were interested in but would require further study and would be probably difficult to implement in a year or two, or perhaps were controversial or deserve further conversation, study, investigation. So we're interested in your feedback. I can just.
What do you mean,
the list.
consider a lottery to convert larger single-family homes to duplexes?
This was from the subcommittee, and the idea was that there's less energy used when a living space is smaller. So if people had large homes that were only zoned to be one residence, that they could, I guess the lottery idea was that there would be a lot of people wanting to do this, and we could only do so much per year. So they would have then 2 dwelling units on a piece of property that formerly had 1 home. And what I understand is that there's no minimum size requirement for a home, so there's not, people are building larger homes because they want to, not because.
How would splitting a house have, I'm trying to follow the logic of, because energy use is a factor of population, not of square footage of housing. Obviously, a big house takes more to heat, but you put 8 people in a house, and that's it's 8. If you put more people in a house, it's more electricity, water, and other uses than 4 people. So I'm just curious.
I think a part of the logic was if your space is smaller, then you use less energy to heat and cool, and then also it would prevent people, building out further, and it would save some open space in addition.
Well, in this case, we should just change this to be, let's limit the size of the houses.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sorry, do you really need a 5,000 square foot house? I mean,
Not for us to say.
yeah, I know, but it's just like, so that one's
There
kind
is
of
that.
that one's kind of a really
That's an interesting one.
cuts both ways.
Well, you just
It
have
actually increased
progressive
energy.
power rates that, the larger your home or the more energy you use, the more you have to pay.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that already the case?
Yeah, you just make it more.
That's not for us to.
But Brisbane can't control that. We can,
Right.
we do have some control over house size. I think, it seems to me I read about somebody in the United States doing that, saying that, there was a maximum square footage allowed for a single-family house. And I also think it makes more sense than the lottery idea if we're going to do anything about house size, considering some sort of square foot limit.
And it would have to be aspirational because we're ultimately not
Yes.
getting to decide
Okay.
that.
Harnessing wind power, promote the use of storm windows. Encourage the heating of a room with a heat grabber or cooling with a swamp cooler. Plant shade trees. And then water them. On the southern sides of. Did you have other things in there that you were?
Does anybody want me to explain any of them?
Yeah, those are all good. Sustainable streets. Expand the consider algae farms.
I'm sorry, could you go up 2 lines? Yeah, that's fine.
So we talked about shuttles, or perhaps an on-call service. Carpool, well, there's carpool, that would be. That's not the same as car share. And how about, let's talk about letter E, 50% of Brisbane's workforce living in Brisbane.
Not if we're
Not
going to
sure that's-
subsidize their housing the way that we do now.
Well, and I'm not sure if that's possible in terms of the number of people that work in Brisbane and the number of households. I think the working population is 8,000, and the residential population is like 4,400. So I think we need to maybe revise that one. And that could be something that we could think about, ways to encourage or not subsidize, but incentivize living closer to where you work, but not to put such a strict number on it. I don't know if the committee is kind of in agreement with that.
Yeah.
I think that's just too tough of a one, and it ends up, in a situation where we would be subsidizing. And I just don't think that you can do that. It'd be nice to have some kind of informal policy where you would give preferential treatment to candidates that had residency, but then they could move the next week. So I don't know that you can really control
Manage
people like
that,
that.
Well,
50% of the Brisbane workforce is already
how many people are in the Brisbane workforce?
8,000, she said, and there's 4,000 people in Brisbane.
Are you referring to Brisbane's work for the city or the city as an employee?
The city limits.
Oh,
Doesn't make sense.
that's good to encourage, but you really can't control that.
Where do all those people work?
The Croco Park.
Really?
And Sierra Point.
Well, I mean, if one of the,
You
You'd-
can't control that.
you
Not
could,
building a bunch of housing.
or having better transportation between Brisbane and Sierra Point, you know, I mean, because it's not exactly an easy walk over the train tracks.
Yeah.
So,
I think that one is,
Great bike ride, though.
you just really
Yeah.
can't control that one. And I think that should be not there.
yeah, I could see maybe incentivizing it in some way, but having that goal, I think, is too rigid. But
That goal was written by a developer who wants housing on the Baylands and housing on Sierra Point.
That was written by Barbara, isn't it?
Well, you know,
which is even better
Get it
because
through.
she wants it without any residents on the Bay.
yeah.
Right, right.
That's one of those ones that has other implications.
Okay, incentivize and encourage. We can keep working on that one and try to craft something that just encourages not additional housing, but I don't have an idea right now, so I'm kind of making it up, but there are advantages to living close to where you work.
It's a very desirable thing.
Yeah.
I'd love to work here.
Quality of life, too. Right?
I mean, has the city done a survey to understand where do most of the residents work, meaning how far from Brisbane do most of the Brisbane residents work?
Well, that's a great point. That's the first thing you can do in an aspirational goal is study what's actually happening and how people get to work and
Right.
how to make
I
it better.
think that might be a good first step, yeah.
Good suggestion.
Thank you. Moving on. Water. The sewer plant, one seems like expensive and takes a lot of space. Consider feasibility of Brisbane establishing its own sewer plant and capturing biogas for energy use. If the full committee really wanted that, it could be studied, but it kind of seems like off the back of the envelope that doesn't.
Where are we pumping
Hey.
it to now?
San Francisco treats all of our sewer.
I think it's a better idea to get the gas from Ecology since they're already getting the waste from San Francisco and bringing it to Brisbane. We might as well get something for that. And, you know, it seems like that would be a cheaper option for getting biogas than building our own plant when we already have a plant on Brisbane, you know, within Brisbane proper.
Yeah, true.
But that, I mean, maybe, well,
You know, we're talking about these items, and one of the members of the subcommittee is not here, so some of that, you know, if that was her idea, she had kind of ideas for including it, and we're not able to have that full discussion of them, but
yeah, I think, you know, it depends what happens with the sewer stuff once it gets to San Francisco. If it's already being converted to biogas there, then we'd want to have a good analysis. It isn't? It's just being...
As far as I know, it's
Yeah.
just sewage.
Well, then it might be something worth looking at the feasibility of it. I mean, it's not, the aspirational goal isn't to actually build it, it's just to consider it.
yes,
So,
that's true.
you know.
I could just picture Stuart saying, well, you guys have to produce more so that we get a better rate per whatever.
At a hearing.
Not even going there, Michelle. Not
Sorry.
even going there.
Oh, my God, let's move through this.
I have a question about, I have a question about C, and that is if this is in the context of saving CO2, if you use the water savings from commercial landscaping to increase water allotments for edible gardens, then you're not actually saving any water. You're putting it to other uses, and those are desirable uses, but if the water's still being used, then you can't call it a savings of CO2.
Well, the only way that you could kind of call it a savings of CO2 if you're really stretching it is that if you're eating stuff out of your own edible garden, then you wouldn't be transporting lettuce from Mexico and tomatoes from...
Well, then you have to calculate that.
Yeah.
But, again, an edible gardens, where are we selling them? In our supermarket? Or in our Brisbane supermarket?
Or no, individuals would be...
Yeah.
It gets complicated.
It does get complicated. But we'd want to look at the CO, if it's a goal that's related to CO2, we'd want to look at how much that would actually affect CO2.
Yeah.
And these aspirational goals are not going to be calculated now.
Right.
They're for the next step or the
Fair
next
enough.
iteration.
But it is not just CO2, it is an environmental action plan.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the greenhouse gases. So as an environmental action plan,
That's legitimate. Yeah.
it is legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I have an edible garden in my backyard. I support that. That's not I'm just, that puts it into better context.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also changing the way that you garden, using things like earth boxes that produce so much more for the amount of water that you use. I mean, it really tremendously changes the dynamics.
Yeah, we talked about that at the last
Oh,
meeting,
they're
right?
amazing.
I know, that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
We had talked about that at the last meeting, right?
yeah,
So
I
we
think
could
so. Mhm.
Work something like that in?
Yeah.
4.4, solid waste, community exchange of used items. All of these can be fleshed out as time goes on, but
Thank you.
keeping stuff out of the waste stream on our own, individual or community level, I guess is what I want to say. Partner with a nonprofit to salvage and resell materials. So paper-free city operations kind of fits with more of an environmental purchasing and use plan, and that's kind of the next level to really move away from paper and get paper-free. Sounds pretty absolute, but that's
You
why it's
mean-
aspirational.
This compared to the box with 3 volumes I got for the EIR?
Exactly. Again, municipal facilities, that's what D is about, city operations. And then we had a miscellaneous category. Local food production.
Under number B, under miscellaneous aspirational goals, actively works towards a diverse. Currently, Brisbane has a significant number of auto body restaurants and freight forwarding companies. I don't know that we have so many auto body places, and I kind of really liked being able to take my car really close by to get it fixed, and not having to, tow it or drive it someplace far away.
May I suggest that we reword that, because clearly the point of it is to encourage people to buy local. So maybe we could just strike that second sentence and say encourage new businesses that Brisbane currently lacks, to encourage people to buy local. I think that's really all we need to say, and then we could list a few examples.
Yeah, I agree. Instead of highlighting the ones that we have too many of, it's not just about buying local, but also about having a diverse economy where we have different services
Right.
that enables that local buying.
And we really don't have a significant number of restaurants.
No, goodness. Oh,
Thank you. I took the words out of my
I'm
mouth.
so sorry, did I say that out loud?
No.
No, you just said my thought.
We had to put something in there to get some feedback, so
Yeah.
we threw a couple gimmies in there. Okay, and
See, it's
Art
fine, whatever. Implementation.
so if more ideas come to you, we are, going to have a council study session in the future, and again, this is a living document, so you can give us feedback, and don't feel like if you don't think of something today that it couldn't be incorporated down the road.
Okay.
We talked a bit about implementation and behavioral change, and this is where this part is, I think we all like this part because it's figuring out how to make these things actually happen. So I don't know that we've taken quite a while on this. Maybe we shouldn't go through item by item, but maybe you guys could review these as you have time and see if you have comments or additional thoughts. That's definitely the next step once it's adopted, so there's time to refine.
Didn't we talk about redoing the city website so that it was easier for people to find out what rebates are currently available?
We talked, that's on the county list,
Oh, okay.
and then they do have the San Mateo County Energy Watch website that is
Okay.
not completely user-friendly and has kind of word links and not pictures, and they welcome feedback on that, and they would,
Okay.
it's
We
on their
should
list.
still have it on our website, too.
Do we have a link or something on our website to their website?
That's a good point, we might not even have that link, no.
We should definitely have some way locally to point people to this stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a
I
great
guess
point.
I just assumed that we did.
Yeah, I don't think, other than the specific programs that are going on, I don't think that we do, so that's a good idea.
Okay.
Did you steal my agenda?
I did. I'm so sorry. You know, I even wrote on it. You're so mean. Monster.
So county lead thinks that we were hoping that the county would help the agencies with and get going on a bigger scale. A revolving fund to finance energy efficiency retrofits at residences and businesses, that'd be a revolving loan.
Can I see your pen?
Outreach staff at the county level that could answer energy and rebate related questions. We felt like there's so much going on out there, so many different programs, so many different sponsors. It is hard to have a handle on what's the best approach. Am I getting the maximum benefit of all of these programs? How do they combine with each other? Like that needs to be made a lot more robust. We have district heating here in terms of the county kind of taking the lead on studying that, including residential properties in the San Mateo County Energy Watch Assessment Program. We talked about that earlier, that they're doing a small business program and that they are doing a pilot program for residential properties. We really feel like if you can just do more than encourage, if you can kind of incentivize and get people started. Oh, if I do this energy upgrade, I'll get this rebate or this, subsidized portion, that would get more people thinking about stuff like that. The residential energy conservation ordinance, that could be done at the county level and would be that much better, that much easier to implement if it was countywide. And again, a county clearinghouse of information we just talked about. And then the next one is Samtrans, making sure that we have enough bus service. It's chicken and the egg. They cut back sometimes because they're not used, but if there isn't a bus there, then people don't start to use it, and the trend is going in that direction. Passed legislation 2016 requiring that all buildings be recommissioned when changing ownership or undergoing major renovation.
Sorry, I have a question about that. I thought that Title 24 required all commercial buildings to be commissioned already.
I was thinking that you had asked about that, but I don't think that we have.
I think I did ask
that.
about it once before, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the upgrade of Title 24. And if it's in state law, obviously we don't have to worry about it. But
we do have to enforce it.
There is something about, telling people how much energy your building uses. Is that what you were thinking about, maybe?
commissioning is a little different. Commissioning is looking at the machinery in the building to see that it's performing the way it's supposed to. And also, sometimes commissioning can turn up something like, you don't need, 2 boilers, one would do, things like that. So, but I was pretty sure there was something in Title 24 already, but maybe its implementation was suspended until 2016 or something. Anyway, we should maybe recheck that before we put it in here.
Okay.
Well, and this is talking about recommissioning, though, right? So it's by recommissioning.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
It's
But under major renovation, that would fall under Title 24.
yeah.
Now, the new code.
Anyway, maybe we should just see what Title 24 says about commissioning buildings.
Yeah, definitely. And then we just included this in the outline, that there would be monitoring and improvement and updates, and this is just kind of the outline of what will be in the plan once it gets finalized. So, do people feel like they might have more comments for us in the future, or should we be, well, we'll be setting up a council study session, and we think that's going to take probably a month to get something on the schedule, so.
And there's a lot more to flesh out in here, right?
Yeah, this is really the outline of it.
Okay, so maybe we'll have the fleshed out version at our next meeting, or for our next meeting?
The meeting after.
We can go that way, yeah. I mean, we kind of want to see where the council is on the measures.
Well, if we write it out for them, they'll have a lot more opinions for us, won't they?
Yeah, we won't have the whole document ready to be
Right.
signed on the dotted line, but
No, but I mean, before they have their study session, if we have it all like drafted and written out for them and everything, then it'll be a more productive study session for them, and they won't be sitting there brainstorming. They'll be sitting there going, oh, yeah, I like that, I like that, I like that. What were they drinking? Recycled water?
all right.
Yeah. Okay. You're leading. We ready to go on to the next thing?
Yes.
You're not the chairperson for the day?
No, it was Michael Abney, and then I took over
No,
until
it's
you
you.
came.
Oh, did he leave?
Yeah.
Oh, he was here.
Yes. That's why you're sitting in the hot seat, baby.
Oh.
You are the
Why,
chair.
why did he leave? Maybe
He had to
somebody-
go. He had something he had to do.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks for the update. You'll be my vice chair pro tem.
Yeah.
So next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to approve? Or am I reading it wrong? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no. I was going to move to approve the minutes. That's the next thing
Isn't
on
that
the
right
agenda.
before we adjourn?
No, it's
No,
the next
we-
thing on the agenda.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I like that at the end. Well, yeah, well, anyways, okay. But today it's here. Yeah, anybody have any comments, or everybody have an opportunity to review, and any comments from the committee?
There are some follow-up things that we haven't finished yet, that when I think about the minutes, like we haven't seen a final draft of that letter about the building ordinance. I mean, we were working on that. Do you remember the letter?
Lot coverage?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that today because
You guys were going to,
I thought I hadn't, but then we thought we had.
you were
I have
going to
a signed
redraft
copy.
the letter.
And I did,
I haven't seen it.
and I guess I thought you were going to send it out. Let us check. We thought we sent it out, and we actually had Barbara sign something, so.
No, I wanted to see it. I haven't seen it. I'd like to see it before we sign it, since I'm on the subcommittee for that.
I'm pretty sure you sent me an email saying it was okay.
I'm
I'll
pretty sure I
double check.
didn't, because I don't think I've seen it. So that was one of
You'll love it, if we already did it.
the... Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
Maybe if we could add it to the staff updates, if not for this month,
Yeah.
then for next month.
Yeah.
We'll email it out if it's actually got, we don't want to wait another month.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
talked about the changes, and that's how I redrafted it, so if you haven't seen it, I'm 99% sure you'll approve.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion approved. Okay, so our next item on this evening's agenda is to discuss opposition to fracking. And who would like to kick off our conversation?
I could just say, shall we take a straw vote? Who's opposed to fracking?
Actually, if I could ask staff the context of the opposition, is it with regards to a measure by the city council expressing their disapproval, or what's the context of why we're discussing fracking?
This was brought up at the last meeting by the chair, asking if the committee wanted to agendize it, and they wanted, the discussion was both a letter from the committee to the council recommending that, and asking the governor to also, my notes are.
Okay.
It's basically a symbolic opposition to fracking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, I think I would go where you were going to go and seeing, is there anybody not opposed to fracking? Or does somebody have a unique angle on why they oppose fracking that they might want to share with the rest of the committee? Bad.
Yeah.
Bad for all kinds of reasons.
So I move that we go ahead and make a resolution to oppose fracking in California.
So we would have to request that of council. I volley back. Is there anyone that's willing to be on a subcommittee and draft a letter?
Barbara.
Yeah, I mean, this came up with our chair, right, with Barbara. So maybe let's just move this to the next meeting so that we can discuss with her on a plan for writing the letter and whatever. I don't want to volunteer her for something, even if she did suggest it.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable, putting her on a subcommittee. But nonetheless, I think that we have a strong agreement among the committee that fracking should be opposed, and that we should have our city council voice that to our governor. So I'm in support of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the Mackin email communication.
So this came up as a written communication at the last meeting, and the committee discussed whether to agendize it, so it's on the agenda. And for a little background, Colleen Mackin wrote a letter. She's familiar with the operations of the Complete Streets Committee as a member, but she represented herself as a member of the community and not representative of the committee in writing this letter, even though she made it from the chair of the committee. And the Complete Streets Safety Committee was charged with reviewing the Complete Streets portion of the circulation element of the general plan. So we are required to, although our general plan pretty robustly has addressed complete streets in 1994 and all the modes of transportation, they weren't all located in one area. And I guess there are differences of opinion as to whether what we've done in our general plan is clear enough. So staff, and that was planning staff, drafted a complete streets portion where it's all grouped together and spelled out: multimodal, public transit, bicycles, pedestrians, every mode of travel. It also does deal with vehicles, of course. And one aspect of that was streetscapes. And so the Complete Streets Committee, Complete Streets Safety Committee, was reviewing what staff did, and they wanted to include, as the language was spelled out, requiring San Bruno Mountain native plants on streetscapes. Let me make sure. San Bruno Mountain native plants and non-invasive drought-resistant plants. So the planning staff didn't want to narrow the palette on streetscapes to only San Bruno Mountain native plants, and agreed with the idea of non-invasives, and that's a practice of the city to make sure no plants are invasive. And drought resistant is obviously becoming more of a practice than it maybe always has been. So there was a disagreement from the committee members and the planning staff. But the planning staff, I don't know if she gets into that detail, said this is going to the planning commission. We will represent what you're interested in, and as staff, we will tell the planning commission what our perspective is. So they held a study session, and they didn't decide on this issue, but they held a study session and discussed those two options for streetscapes for public rights of way. So I guess this came out about after that planning commission meeting where that discussion was held, that maybe there was a misunderstanding that they were adopting something. So at some point they will make their recommendation, they will vote, and they will decide what they're recommending goes to council. And at that point also the Complete Street Safety Committee's recommendations will go along to council, and then the council will ultimately decide that as these processes do occur. So with this letter, Colleen Mackin is asking the the Open Space and Ecology Committee to, what did she say, make a bold and progressive move towards more desirable landscaping that can weather the cycles of droughts. Please consider supporting the inclusion of native species in our revised general plan. So this is particularly about streetscapes, and I think the position of staff, as I understand it, was not to be restrictive. To offer it as an option is what they would consider reasonable, but to not restrict in a general plan, which is not a program or a specific policy, that only San Bruno Mountain natives could be planted in streetscapes. And Glenn has a comment.
But it doesn't say that. Their proposed language does not say that. If you go back to the previous page, the proposed language is landscaping should consist primarily of San Bruno Mountain native plants and non-invasive drought-resistant plants. The alternative to that wording is drought-resistant plants.
And I agree with what Colleen wrote, because if you don't put it in there as an aspiration, it's not limiting. It just says we prefer to use San Bruno Mountain natives.
And or non-invasive drought-resistant plants.
Yeah, because if we had used San Bruno Mountain natives and non-resistant, if we had chosen that first for instance, the Northeast Ridge, we wouldn't have as many problems as we have right now. And we wouldn't have these damn other species of eucalyptus trees that are now too tall, that the butterflies can't fly over and should be trimmed. And so, this is the landscape that we live in. It is a protected habitat. It is a rare and precious thing that we do a lot of work with. And that should be reflected in our general plan, that is what we desire. Whether we can do it or not, that is what we desire. And this leaves it open for, this is what we desire, and if we can't do that, we can do this. And so I don't see why they're resisting it.
A question here is, Colleen is asking us to support the language that includes a preference for San Bruno Mountain native plants and then non-invasive drought-resistant plants, as opposed to simply saying non-invasive drought-resistant plants, right?
As opposed to saying drought-resistant plants, which leaves the door open so that French broom could walk right through it.
Yeah.
So, I'm in support of it. It sounds like Michelle and Glenn are in support of it. Is there anybody not in support of it? Do we have a motion to support Colleen in her request?
I make a motion that we support Colleen in the request that, and the Complete Streets Committee the landscaping should consist primarily of San Bruno Mountain native plants and non-invasive drought-resistant plants. And in support of what she says on the second page, the Complete Streets Committee saw the revision of our general plan as an opportunity to profess the goals and aspirations of the future of the community. While not requiring native plants, there would be a statement of preference for including them where possible. They are the best acclimated to our area and have the best chance for survival at this time. Propagating these species to restore the habitat would be an added benefit. And I think that that is a perfectly reasonable aspirational goal and a perfectly acceptable statement of action that is not limiting. It is directive, but it's not limiting.
Well, when you know that I staff the Complete Streets Committee also, and we don't have our meetings televised, but our recollections is that it was a matter of, it wasn't just a goal, a suggestion, right? Thank you for the wording. That it was, this needs to stay in. We need to use San Bruno Mountain native plants in all of our streetscapes.
Exclusively. I don't think that's a realistic goal.
But that's not what
That's not what it says here.
And it's not what Colleen's explanation says. The Complete Streets, this is from the second page.
But I was at the
Quoting.
meeting. I was at the meeting.
So she did say it at the meeting, but that's not what this.
It wasn't, it was the committee.
But
It
I mean,
wasn't
the
just
committee-
one individual.
But the committee said that, but that's not what this letter says.
Right.
So we're supporting this letter, or we're discussing supporting this letter.
Yeah, and that's what the
Not-
motion is.
Yeah, and I'm just explaining that I think that's why this got this far, is that
Ah, okay.
Well,
So,
there was an absolutism.
it sounds from Colleen's letter like it was Ken Johnson who looked at language proposed by Complete Streets and said, this is not acceptable. I mean, that's what her narrative
And I guess that would quite oversimplify it. He said, I will bring forth the language that you want, and I will make my recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will bring their recommendation to the council. Your recommendation will also go to the council, and the council will decide. So Ken Johnson is not deciding whether this is
and,
in or out.
so by what, writing a letter, we'll voice support for that? Is that?
Are we just supporting this letter?
I will find out whether we can simply, you've said that you all voted to support it, or whether we need a letter from Open
Yes,
Space
there's a
to
motion
the
on
Planning
the table
Commission.
to support the position in this letter. In particular, landscaping should consist primarily of San Bruno Mountain native plants and non-invasive drought-resistant plants. That's the motion on the table. Is there a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go forward from there.
So do we want to, will staff simply provide our result to the committee, or what are the next steps there?
Well, I'll check in at the staff level, and if it can be an email from staff to them stating the recommendations or the support, then that's fine. If they want a letter that's signed by the chair, then,
It's in the minutes.
yeah,
Then we'll draft a letter
get a letter
that's signed by
together,
the chair that says this.
right.
Okay.
Either way. I mean,
Okay.
I'll find out which way is appropriate.
Wonderful. That brings us to our subcommittee reports, starting with education and outreach. Who's the subcommittee member?
Barbara is on education and outreach, and I don't know who the other subcommittee, I know you're working on the
I'm
library
working on
shelf.
the library.
But I do want to say something, because when we were, last year when I was still on the education committee, the last thing that I brought up was about doing video shorts. And I'm just going to be really brief on this. I still think it is a great idea that we do a series of video shorts and have a community building thing where the community does a building, these video shorts that we can share and put on the city website and have people be able to access them. But while we were sitting here talking about the EAP, I thought it would be really a great idea to actually have a video booth or a videographer at Day in the Park and set up, kind of like little video vignettes of interviewing people about what they're doing about the environment and recycling, and maybe a little recycling demonstration, et cetera, and kind of have a little chronicle that gets edited down to maybe an hour that we show on our city website. And so I'd like us to consider that and agendize it for the next meeting, and get that we have funds to hire a videographer to do a short film on for the Open Space and Ecology Committee during Day in the Park. And that's our shtick at the booth, is come and tell us your ideas and
Share.
capture it all on video and then have it edited together into a presentation. Sorry, just brainstormed that just now, but I think that it would really be a good thing. I think people would be interested, and I think people would be interested to come and tell us what are they doing, and maybe have a little go around the thing and have a demonstration of people putting their garbage in the right place. And, I mean, obviously it'd be, community interactive. Who knows how it would actually turn out, but why not? Why not?
I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that not someone? I'm wondering if that could be done on an iPhone or a smartphone.
just wondering the same thing.
You know what? It'll turn out a lot better if we
Have a real video.
if we have a real videographer who knows what they're doing, like Keith Moreau or Gail Mallamson, who've done this kind of thing before. Because really, the art is when after you've captured all the film, putting it back together into a that
Well,
the
and maybe
people want
that's
to
your
watch.
point, is that the vignettes are taken just by lay people, but then someone else edits them together.
That's much more difficult.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Yeah. But I'd like us to explore the possibility as our group. I mean, we have a budget every year. We never, hardly ever use our whole budget. And I think it'd be a really good thing for us to do this. And it would be a way for us to kick off our individual film education process, where we have a calling for kids to come and submit videos and adults to come and submit their videos, and sort of make this a community project where we really do outreach education, not just us standing here saying something. I mean, think about how many people came to see No Deposit, No Return. We filled this room. It was really exciting. We need something exciting like that to get people involved and get them aware. And I think that this is the way that we could do it, especially with the proliferation of iPhone videos.
Are you
Kind of-
okay?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that kind of related idea, it's not quite the same, would be to have a video contest for kids
Yeah.
and get them to use their iPhones and submit video for judging at the community festival or some other.
I was thinking that the community festival would be where we would kick it off, when people come to our booth, and then we'd hand them the sheet, and then maybe in January, have a review of all the,
Contest.
yeah.
I think these are great ideas. I mean, how would we want to do we present them to the education and outreach subcommittee, or do we integrate the output of that subcommittee into our wider committee-wide discussion? Or
I don't know, since it's dealing with funds and a decision that what we're going to do at Day in the Park, I guess, I don't know how you want to do
There's
that.
a Day in the Park subcommittee.
yeah.
I think it's you and Barbara, right, Kima?
Well, I was just about to ask, does that mean you're volunteering for the Day in the Park subcommittee for this year?
Planning-wise, but
Yeah.
my responsibility on the actual Day in the Park is with
Yeah,
that
of course.
launch.
Well, I
Which
mean,
is right next to it. I mean, we're all together there, so.
yes. I think what I'd like to suggest is maybe we add that to the agenda for next week, for next month, to kick off the discussion for the Day in the Park. I actually think that's a great idea, and as you were describing it, and as the committee was talking about it, I was also starting to spin off into, well, what if we had different categories, and
Yeah.
So let's maybe agendize that for next month and begin our discussion as a committee, and then we could spin off into the subcommittee of whoever is the most enthusiastic or has the most availability for kind of taking the next steps as part of the subcommittee.
Yeah.
And
And getting, one of the, local filmmakers involved and finding out what kind of funds we have to do that. I mean, there's David Brown, there's Keith Moreau, there's Gail Mallamson, there's other resources, other people might be interested. But find out, do we have any financial resources to do this with? And then let's just do it. I think it'd be like exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like it also might be larger than just the day in the park, because there would be other.
That's the beginning of it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do we want a separate agenda item to talk about this as part of the education and outreach initiatives of the committee, and have a committee discussion about that, like above and beyond the subcommittee?
Yeah.
Who's the subcommittee for education and outreach?
I'm on it now.
I think you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Barbara.
And Barbara's on it.
Okay.
So you set the agenda. You're the chair. So
All right, let's set 2 agenda items. One for the Day in the Park kickoff discussion, because of that, by July, that means we're going to have 3 months, right, to prepare?
2 months.
Or 2 months, 2 more meetings after that to
Yeah.
prepare. And then another for the videography idea, and as part of the education and outreach. Okay, great.
Okay.
Anybody have any idea the order of magnitude of the cost of editing?
a couple of grand probably. I mean, you could call a couple of them, and I can get you phone numbers, and you can call and ask. You know, kind of outline what you've heard tonight, and then say, what do you think a project like that would cost?
Yeah, I mean, it might be good to also just, it would be good to find out sort of what the general range of funding is, but to narrow down or to hone in the idea, to have a little more concrete idea of exactly what are we talking about.
Yeah.
Are we talking about 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 15 minutes? I imagine a lot of those details would impact the cost.
Yeah.
A lot,
What the final
so,
edit was
yeah.
and everything.
But
I have no idea.
is any members of the Education and Outreach Subcommittee able to make a report on efforts so far?
I know that 2 members of the Education and Outreach Subcommittee have been pretty busy with the Environmental Action Plan, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So let's table the rest of this for next.
sounds great. Yeah, and
So I think there was an update for the library shelf. Was that
Yep.
right?
I was just going to tell everybody that.
perfect.
Yeah. Francisco sent an email out today. It was very timely. He said that the library display is up, and it's in a prominent area in the library, and it was done by the end of today, and that he has a library staff that's working on it, mainly Natalie, but he has asked for all the staff's help, and he said thanks for his patience. And he will be posting on the library Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter sometime today also.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
And if we thought of other ideas to add to the bookshelf, it's not too late to.
You can always add.
Okay,
You can
great.
always
No,
add
it's an ongoing thing. and we have
Ongoing.
the one online, so yeah, just send me or Megan. Yeah.
Do we have a list of what's up?
It's
It's on
everything's on the
it's
the
on
website.
Okay.
Everything that's in there, the links, the different things.
It's on the library website or the OSEC website?
OSEC website.
OSEC website. But is the library Facebook page different than the residents of Brisbane?
Yes.
And can they post to residents of, how many people are actually members of Library of Brisbane Facebook page?
I don't know, but we can put it on.
Right, so can they post to residents of Brisbane where we have almost 700 people? I think that's the most people are.
Cisco to be a member.
Yeah.
That'd be really good because then he'll
Yeah.
get more people
Yeah,
and we'll get.
exactly.
That's right, because if we are not aware that the library has a
Yeah.
Facebook page, most probably a lot of
do.
people in Brisbane are not.
Yeah. Perfect, good, great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I wanted to add, Camelia and Barbara have been sending me, ideas and updates for the sustainability webpage. So if you haven't seen it recently, you should take a look.
Got it.
Okay.
Very cool.
Natalie? It'd be really helpful if, like, you sent us an email with the link, and then that when we would have no excuse not to go there and look.
I've sent it.
Well, we'd have one less excuse.
Right.
All right. Great. Any other updates from anyone? All right. So staff updates.
Oh, we have the June Habitat Restoration Day coming up. Oh, my God.
27th.
We do?
Yep. Castonius Canyon.
Yeah.
Do I have it
First
on my
Canyon.
calendar?
I'll be having my daughter's birthday party
Oh, I
at
have
the
it on my
Brisbane pool,
calendar.
so I won't be able to attend.
That is, oh my
Could be
gosh, I
some
almost
water.
forgot that. That's
Got
the
it.
27th. Are we doing, that's like in a week,
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
You got all the stuff up on the boards and all that, everything we need to do for that?
So we've been circulating some other items on the board. So we've been really working on advertising the San Mateo County Energy Watch. And we sent out letters to businesses that, I mean, narrowed as possible as we could, that think they'd apply for the small business energy audit. So we've been kind of pushing that forward. I did already make flyers. They said, you know, I was told they would be posted. Everything else has been set, you know. I'm working with Park and Rec, and we're doing the normal porta potty, you know, parking, everything. So all the wheels are set in motion.
Can you reach out again to Mountain Watch and Peter Steeler and make sure everybody's, like, it's on the radar?
We've already met.
Okay.
They devised a work plan for the day. I have reached out for tools again, so that's all been done.
Okay, good.
Cool.
I'm just oblivious. Oh, my God. Can we also put it on, save the date on the city blog and all that? And
Yes,
on the-
I think it's also been announced in the Star as well. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll redo all of those things again.
yeah, because we had such a great turnout for the one that we had in April.
Well, I mean, those were students.
Yeah,
No,
but
I don't-
still, there was a lot of Brisbane people, too.
Oh, there was, right. There was actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get those students back?
School's out.
Oh.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were getting credits for that or not, or if it was extra. You know, I'm not really sure.
It was extra credit for some of them.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
They were Joe Cannon students.
Yeah. But let's reach out and make sure we have them all. And it's at 9 a.m. Saturday, June 27th, and we're meeting at Firth Park. It'll be nice and shady, but wear long sleeves, long pants.
Is it Castañas Canyon or Frith?
It's Firth Park, not Costañas Canyon.
Oh.
It's Firth Park,
Great.
over on Glen Parkway. This time it's Firth Park,
Yeah.
Firth Canyon.
I'll send out the flyer to all of you.
That'd be great. Okay, and you want to provide updates on some of the other items we're going through there?
So Title 24 training, this was requested that we revisit this again around this time, since we did one last year and we didn't have the best turnout. So I kept in touch with the people from San Mateo County, and they're trying to recruit people to do trainings again, and they reached out to me asking if we wanted to do another one. And I said, yes, we were thinking about it. And then, but she also mentioned me, Daly City is thinking about doing one, and I said, yeah, maybe if we merge something together, we'd have a better turnout. And I reached out to them again for a date, and they didn't have anything set yet. So
Okay.
What is SMCEW?
Energy Watch, I just talked about that actually. So the letters we sent out for the small business audits. I don't know, anything else to add about that
Okay.
Energy Watch challenge? Work plan, that was on our OSEC calendar to review it again. So do we need to review our work plan again? We normally do that next meeting.
Yeah, let's do it next meeting.
Do it next meeting?
Yeah, let's put it on the agenda for next meeting if it's typically done in July. And
Baylands Environmental Impact Report is ready. You can get it in this format, CD, or you can ask and borrow a 3-volume hard copy, which is available at the library, City Hall, and anywhere else?
It's on the website, right? It's on the city website.
Should be there should be electronic version.
Yeah, I saw it on the web, so I think people can access it there, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
That was a reference to if somebody wanted a hard copy to thumb through, that those are available.
okay. I think that leaves plastic bag recycling.
Just the South San Francisco scavenger, per the franchise agreement, was, part of it was, a requirement was to bring us a plastic bag recycling container. So it's now set up at the post office, and I think something went out on the weekly website update, and it lists what can be recycled, because it's a little bit more than just plastic bags, and bubble wrap, and I'm lost for words today. Dry cleaning cover bags,
Right.
and all those types of things, and they will come regularly and empty that and
Wonderful.
see how that
Well, that's
goes.
great.
Yay.
Maybe they can put a used clothing
Next.
bin next to it.
Why wouldn't the post office love that? What is the date of our next meeting?
15th of
15.
July.
There you go.
That's it. That's a wrap, right?
Yeah, do you
I
want to
think so. Does any other committee members have any comments or final thoughts before we close?
We did want to mention August. Natalie is not going to be here on the third week of August, so we wanted to put out a feeler as to whether we might be able to move that meeting, because I don't know how to televise it.
Well, when will Natalie be here? Because, you know,
I could be here either the 5th or the 26th.
I don't know if we can get the anybody else meet the first? I think the last week, the last Wednesday of the month is available. This room is available. And the 5th, I have complete streets at the same time. So that's not.
August 26th? Does that work for everybody?
Maybe. I don't have my teaching schedule with me. It's the first week of school, so I'm not positive, but.
So there's still time. We could send out an email.
There's still time, and then we could also check what other days of the week.
Yeah.
maybe-
Can't you just come home for your honeymoon early?
How about, why don't we get a list of available dates and let's agendize it for July towards the end of the schedule, yeah, and like it is here. But let's do that towards the end of the next meeting.
Sure.
Discuss it.
Yeah, we just wanted to put the feeler out so everyone was.
Yeah, no, I'm open to moving. I don't have anything on my calendar, but that doesn't mean yeah. Well, yeah, but no, I mean it's better to put things in earlier. So yeah. Any other thoughts or suggestions?
I'd just like to welcome Kima as the new chair for this year.
Well, thank you. I had an acceptance speech prepared, and unfortunately I wasn't able to give it at the beginning, but it amounted to thanking my esteemed predecessors for all of their hard work, and I hope to be able to carry on in their tradition. So, thank you.
Of long meetings?
No gavel.
Yeah, no, it's 9 o'clock. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Yeah.
And do I have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yeah.
9 o'clock on the dot.
On the dot. You starting off.
We'll figure out some kind of investiture ceremony for you.
Yes, I want like a robe and a mortar hat or something.
Some kind of hat.